So thank you everybody for joining. We're still going to have some people coming in, but we wanted to start right on time at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, wherever you are in this country or the world. I know we've got people even joining us from Malaga tonight. So they're going to be kind of tired because it's 1 o'clock in the morning in Malaga. Oh, there he is. We've got Sergey from Malaga. We've got Don coming in. I think Don is joining too. Kirsten, hi, we see you on the camera. How are you? Uh, so um, Before we get started, just a little bit of an introduction of what this masterclass is and its objectives. Thank you all for joining. This is great because I've been going through this process myself for the past 10 years, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life and whether I want to move to Europe or not. And the fact that there's been so much interest has been really encouraging because it can feel daunting and lonely. And where do you get the answers and questions all the time? And I know that there's a lot of Facebook groups out there, and I see lots of questions. And sometimes the answers are good, sometimes the answers are not so good. And it's really relative because sometimes the answers are good for one person and not another. And that's the reason for this masterclass that I put together with the help of Iveta, my colleague here at IG, because we wanted to create a tribe and a group of supportive individuals that have the same kind of dreams and values that they want to, for whatever reason, they're Canadians dreaming of living, retiring, working, or studying abroad, and they're looking for answers, the right answers. So we're going to get into what we're talking about today, but just some housekeeping. If you choose to have your camera on, for example, like Kirsten, then you're going to be recorded the whole session. So if you want to do that, keep it on. If you don't want, keep it off because we're going to be recording this and putting it on a private YouTube unlisted channel, which you will all have access to, and all the recordings will be available until June the 30th, 2025. Uh, Disclaimer, we are not promising that we're going to give you a perfect checklist of this is how you move from wherever you are in the world to wherever you want to go to. What we're trying to do here is to provide you with a high level plan that covers three main categories. Financial, because we're financial professionals. So most of the questions we get is, what happens to my CPP? What happens to my investment property? What happens to my RSPs? What are the tax implications? But then it's also emotional and logistical. So emotional, logistical are just as important as the financial because I've had so many discussions with people that want to move and all of a sudden they're like wondering, oh my goodness, what's going to happen with like my child just got married or what I want to stay here, they might have grandkids. Like all of a sudden they change their minds or what happens if what's going to happen with my friends and my family? What are they going to say to me? Like it's not an easy move sometimes. Sometimes it can be easy, sometimes not. So we're going to talk about that too. And logistical, like how do I move my stuff? Do I want to move my car? Do I want to move my whole house? Do I want to start again and be like, get an apartment and go to IKEA and start fresh, like putting things together with all the little lock nuts and everything? These are all important questions that are part of this moving to another country. And sometimes moving is not permanent. My own story is basically I wanted to move originally, but now I'm thinking maybe I'll keep a footprint in Canada and move, and just travel a little bit. So these are changing plans all the time. Um, in terms of what we want to cover in this session, it's a foundational session to get to know me, get to know Iveta, who we are. Uh, Again, I encourage you guys to use the chat to ask questions. Iveta is going to be monitoring the chat. And then if there's any questions that come up that we can't answer during this session, feel free to send us an email. And if it's something urgent, like if some of you I noticed are looking to move in the next 12 months, so maybe there's an urgent question you need to get answered, let us know. If you're looking to move in the next 3 to 5 years, you have a little bit more time to plan, so it might not be as urgent, but you want to get those questions answered as well. All right. So let's just get into it. My story here, and then I'll ask Yvette to share hers. I'm from Eastern Europe. I'm Romanian by birth. I was 4 years old when I came to Canada, and I'm basically Canadian. All right. Even though I go back and I visit, I love Europe. I was raised Canadian, but I've got Eastern European roots. And what's happened was I've been in the financial industry for over 25 years, and I'm 53 right now. And about 10 years ago, my wife and I started talking about, well, what are we going to do about my in-laws? Because they still live back in Romania, and they're in their mid 80s. They were in their late 70s, early 80s then. And we want to be closer to them because all my family, all my support is here in Canada, but they're by themselves there. And that's how this thought started forming in my head. How do I get there? And I looked around and it was like a wasteland of information because there was like, I basically did it all myself to figure out how to get my citizenship, whether I should buy a property there or not. And that's how I started thinking about this idea of helping other Canadians. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I started actually getting questions asked of me of other Romanians in my community and sometimes other communities that I was going out to, asking me what happens to my CPP, what happens to my RIF, and all those different questions. It's when I started making connections with international tax accountants and lawyers and making connections on Facebook groups and finding out there's a lot of thirst for knowledge out there to figure out how do we do this? Hey everyone, Serge here. I'm downtown Toronto today, checking out venues for an upcoming in-person seminar for those who are interested in becoming either an expat of Canada and retiring abroad, or potentially digital nomads who want to know what the tax implications are of working different. Hi everybody, Serge here. I'm here at the first potential venue we may have our September seminar for expats, digital nomads, snowbirds, and so on. These are our offices downtown at IG Wealth in the heart of the city, and this would be the room. Of course. Hey everyone, I'm here at the second location here where we might be doing our seminar in the fall for expats, Canadian expats who are interested to move outside of the country, or snowbirds or digital nomads. So we're really excited. This is in a historic building. Used to be the trading floor, I believe, for TD. And now I wanted to say I'm just so impressed and I'm full of gratitude for seeing so many people here, and online we've got like 44 people. There's supposed to be 25 and people are still coming in. This is a hot topic and I'm really happy because I feel like it's not just me that's interested in this. So that's my story, and we are fortunate enough. Okay, it's taken 10 years to figure this out, but I'm fortunate enough to say yes, I can do this, and we have a plan in a couple of years to potentially either bite the bullet and leave fully from Canada, or stay in Canada partially and then travel the world. And I hope my dream and desire is that by you attending this masterclass, you'll be also getting a plan that at the end of these 10 sessions, when we end in February, you'll have something solid that you can actually think about that, yeah, this is realistic. We can actually do it. And we have options where we can decide what to do. So thank you for attending. Iveta, I'm going to ask you to say a few words about who you are and why we're partnering on this and your story.
Thank you. Thank you, Serge. And good evening, everyone. Well, good evening in Ontario. Those who are overseas, not sure. Is it morning? Probably, yes, early. Well, similar to Serge, I was born in Latvia, came here when I was 18, and established my life in Canada. Have my career, became a financial advisor for the past 24 years, and the kids are growing, and we've started traveling a bit more with my husband back to Europe. And that euphoria when you go there and experience the life there, it's the comparison that we put in perspective. And that is what triggered me personally and my husband to consider a move, or consider maybe an arm, an extension, a property. And this is where all the questions started falling. And there you go, we are with Serge in the same office, and we've decided to actually partner up on it. But the emotional aspect that will be looked at is going to be extremely important throughout this whole process here. Because you would consider, well, hold on a second, I have kids, would they move with me? Are they going to stay here? How will I support them? How will I pass on any of my assets to them? Or do I want to? What about my life insurance, etc.? And then the plan itself. So if life in Canada, well, 20 years ago when we did the planning, it would cost on average, people would say, well, all I need is 3,000 net on monthly basis and I'll be happy. Well, today it's not the story anymore. Unfortunately, the facts show that there is much higher minimum of survival level that you would need to enjoy your retirement. Hence, it is important to know your numbers and to understand where these numbers would bring you in living, let's say, in Europe. And once again, that's where we have our passions colliding with Serge on this topic, and we're looking forward to truly providing you with ideas and guidelines on this plan. So that's me. I'm here to answer any other questions, but without further ado, we are already 10 past 7. So Serge,
No
take it
worries.
off.
We can definitely edit. So we had a question in the chat if there's a Facebook group for this expat session. There is, in fact, many Facebook groups. We have, Iveta has one, I've got one, there's other ones on there. We are building a community, so yes, there is one for this one, and I will share it in after the session when I send out the email with the different links for tools for today. And there's also going to be a specific YouTube playlist just for this group as well. Okay, thank you for the question. So let's get moving on. So again, I want to touch again on the three different considerations that most people know they're thinking about, but they haven't put them in different buckets. And I find for myself, it was good to put them in buckets to think about it, because then maybe that's how my brain works. But there's a financial bucket, and that's because I'm focused on that. How do we make sure we have enough? Do we sell everything and move it all over to Europe in euros, or what's the exchange rates? How do we even do that kind of thing? These are really important questions, and specifically the ones we get a lot is, what's the tax implications like for all my income that's going to happen, right? So that's the part that Iveta and I have the strength on. That's where we're going to be taking through these sessions. An avatar couple, Mark and Mary expat. We kind of fought on what the name should be. We just called it Mark and Mary today. And we're going to go through their scenario step by step and show you how we would help them to figure out if they have enough financial considerations to get this done. The second one is the emotional consideration. Internet is lagging. Okay. Hopefully you can all see this, but we are recording it. So unfortunately, I don't know if I can do for the internet lagging on everybody's. If that's the case, well, you're off. You don't have your cameras on, so hopefully it's working for you guys. Give us a thumbs up if it's working. The emotional ones, we're going to be bringing in people who've already made the move and talk to them about what happened, what they went through, and what are maybe some tips and strategies that they can suggest for others. I remember one of my good high school buddy, he moved to Spain decades ago. And we were not the nicest friends. I mean, we were younger back then. We're like, why are you leaving us, Jose? How could you do this for us, right? But it was something that he had to do, and it was something that called to him. And now, of course, he's living a wonderful life over in Spain, and we're all friends still, of course, but these are not as easy as people think, right? I mean, in the back of your mind, you might be thinking, should I tell my parents if I'm leaving? Should I tell my friends if I'm leaving? And these are things to think about. And finally, logistically, we've had questions coming up. I have a pet. How do I move my pet? Like, do I use like cargo? Like, what's the procedures? And do they need vaccinations? All these kind of questions, and they're all available for you guys on the internet to Google. But we plan to talk about these and dissect them for you guys. Now, most of each of the future sessions, the majority part of it is going to be the financial aspect, and then we're going to have the last 10 or 15 minutes an expert coming in to talk about other things. So for example, next week, I'm just confirming that Randy would be available to come in and talk about downsizing. He is a realtor in the GTA, and he's going to talk about what to do to make sure that it's the best way that you can get the best bang for your buck, or whatever he talks about as a realtor. He's the expert on that. I'm not going to steal his thunder. But basically, even how to even think about downsizing, because some of us might be thinking about using the equity in our home to fund our retirement. But myself, I have an investment property. So I'm thinking to downsize, but keep my investment property, have that as funding my retirement as well. So these are different aspects we'll talk about. And in future sessions, we'll also be bringing in, I think Sergey is online. He is actually from Malaga, Spain, and he made the move from Toronto a couple of years ago. And I've had wonderful time interviewing him and his wife, Ala, because they've actually set up a company in Malaga, in Andalusia, Spain, where they help Canadians and Americans buy a property there. So he's going to actually be a guest in future sessions as well to answer questions. So that is basically the three considerations. And of course, now there's also the logistical part is visas. By the way, Iveta wanted me to make sure I highlight this as a disclaimer. We are not specialists in filling out visa requirement forms. That's not our specialty. We are specialists in the financial part and getting the information for you and getting you the connections and the specialists that do that, so we can introduce you to them. But that part you still have to do on your own. So because we're all different. I'm planning to move to Romania first, and I don't need a visa because I'm Romanian. Some of you are not European and you want to move to Spain and you want to get a non-lucrative visa or a student visa or a digital nomad visa, or I guess they're going to be changing the golden visa. These are all different things that we will talk about and investigate, but that will be part of your job to move on to the next step to talk with the right specialist after we've introduced them to you. All right. Healthcare, another logistical question, like, well, how do we deal with healthcare in the new country that we're living in, right? Because Ontario Health or Alberta or BC, whatever it is only going to cover you so much, if it's going to cover you at all once you've left Canada and you're not a resident. So these are all things we're going to talk about. So anything to add, Iveta, before I move on to showing some of the other things?
Well, you will have other specialists. You didn't mention the mover. You will have a tax accountant. There's also an event coming up. So if that is of a notable mention.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, for those of you living in the GTA Toronto area and part of this masterclass, you'll be the first to know we are actually having an in-person session with international tax accountants and lawyers in downtown Toronto. Trowbridge Professional Corporation will be there. Gowling WLG will be there, and it's going to be 100 people max in the room, catered. It's going to be just a wonderful event, and you'll be able to rub shoulders and shake hands with the professionals and ask them questions specific to your situation. So you'll get the first invite available. And if you're in GTA, it's on us to come out and have a good time and meet these people. So that's part of this masterclass as well. Okay, so let's move on then to some of the tools I want to show here. Unless there's anything else, Iveta, that you wanted to talk about. No? Okay. So there's a couple of things that I want to share. But before we actually let's have a little bit of fun. I want to see in the email that I sent out, I think we did some pre-work, and maybe you didn't see it. Maybe you did. And I'll start off with the pre-work. The optional pre-work was, wherever you're going in the world, what's your favorite local dish there, if you know it? What's your biggest roadblock to get there? What are your personal goals to get there? Do you have a support network? What's the language? How do you say hello, goodbye, good morning, and any cultural research? So I'll go first. It's easy because I go there every year. And it's not Spain. I love Spain. We were there for a while. It's Romania. So we're planning to go to Romania, and the local food, everything. I mean, honestly, I love cabbage rolls and mamaliga and they're very meat heavy, intensive people there, which I love, but they're also, you know, lots of sauerkraut and pickles, and I love that stuff. So that's what I'm looking forward. Cabbage rolls definitely tops the list. Biggest roadblock for me was, um, you know, family. Like I was trying to, my mom is here. My dad passed away a couple of years ago. So do I leave my mom and my sister um, to go to Europe? And I felt like I really thought about this a lot. And I feel that I can travel back. My mom is younger than my in-laws. My sister's here, my brother-in-law is here, my whole family is actually here. My uncle is here. There's a huge support network here. And I can definitely see myself traveling back and forth. So roadblock for me was family to figure that out and how, how to manage that. But what has taught me, I don't want to bring up COVID, but COVID has really shown us how international we can be and virtual. Like my wife talks with her parents almost every day on her phone. So it's a smaller planet than it used to be, and getting on a plane for me these days is like getting on a bus. So I've passed that roadblock. Personal goals. Well, listen, I'm a financial planner today here in Canada, but I'm not going to be a financial planner in Romania. So my personal goal is to support Canadians who want to travel and figure things out because I've got the experience and that's the personal goals I've got. Support network. Hey, Iveta, you guys on this call, I consider this to be a tribe. Like I envision in a couple of years, if one of you guys, I don't want to say name, I'll just pick some names here, Chris or Don or wherever you are. I know where you guys are. I'll be, hey, I'm in your neck of the woods in July of whatever. I'd love to have a coffee and at your favorite coffee shop and have a cappuccino. That's what I envision, like the support network that we have. Language learning, I don't need to learn the language, I already know it. Bună ziua, la revedere, dayo tsuika, for all the Romanians out there. And cultural research, well, that's okay. This is a big one. And I know I think I'm going over a little bit, but cultural research, it can be a culture shock. Even though I'm Romanian, I've lived in Canada all my life. Going back, it can be still a culture shock. So for all you Canadians out there planning the move that are not of European descent, uh, it's going to be different. That's for sure. So one tip that I got from people was travel. Go spend some time there before you make the big move. Maybe take a month or 2 months and live somewhere for a while and see what actually happens because you might be surprised. So many YouTube videos about people going there from North America and saying, man, they eat so late, or man, they eat so early, or man, it's so noisy at night because all the garbage trucks come out. Like it's sort of different lifestyle. So that's basically the cultural research. Anybody else want to want to add in the chat or come off mute and say anything about the pre-work? Iveta?
Stefania, do you want to say what you just said in the chat?
She said in Romanian, I gave her cravings for sarmale.
Okay, what is sarmale?
Sarmale is cabbage rolls.
The cabbage rolls.
Okay.
It
Okay.
was like something in between us, the Romanians. I think we are the only ones at this moment live, like Romanians, on the chat. So yeah, sarmale are very good.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on. If anybody feels like sharing, please go ahead and do it in the chat. I'm going to start sharing the screen then for the first item that I want to show you that we're going to provide to you as a tool, and that is the goals and concerns worksheet. Okay, so share. Iveta, can you see that on the screen?
Yes, Serge, it's there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I have pre-filled this. Let me make it a bit bigger to make sure that everybody can see it. This is a tool, and by the way, if you don't already know, Iveta, this is where we work, IG Wealth Management. And I want to say another thing. This is in no way, any way to solicit any business. I want to be clear about that. This is simply to provide our expertise and information and grow a group. So please do not feel at any time that there's any requirement that you have to do any business with us or anything like that. But if you have any questions, we're here to answer. So they provided this goals and concerns that we use with almost every single new prospective client that comes in our doors, so we can get a better understanding of what they're going through and what's important for them. And sometimes we'll use this tool to show it to clients because, you know, if you ask somebody, what's your goals and concerns? Sometimes like, I don't know, I want to retire. Okay. And it's kind of difficult to put it into words sometimes, but we're all working for something. It's to pay our mortgage, to put food on the table, put our kids through school. And sometimes seeing a list of things can highlight what's important. So the way I typically use it with people, and we'll take Mark and Mary Expat, which is like a fictional couple. You know, Mark and Mary Expat, you know, thanks, you were introduced to me and so on. So what are we doing here? Well, we want to move to Spain. We want to move to Europe, actually. We're not really sure. We don't even know what to do. And so like, tell us a little bit more about what's important. Well, they definitely want to fund their desired retirement lifestyle. They want to retire there. They don't want to work there. So this is a very high part of their goals. They also want to create a meaningful vision for the next phase of their life. And this is just one tool. It's not the be all and the end all. But what this shows is an importance of knowing what it is your end goal is. Did I lose everybody? Oh no, Iveta just turn off her camera. So in this case, we've got Mark, he's 54 years old, Mary's 51, two children, Zach 21 and Tina 17. Mark is self-employed professional IT engineer earning $150,000 per year. Mary works in the public sector and has a hoop pension earning $120,000 per year. They have RSPs and TFSAs valued at $600,000. They have a mortgage on their home. We didn't put just living in the GTA, I will say home value approx let's say 2 million, depending on where you live in the country. They want to plan to move to Europe and need advice on how to best support their children because, well, the children have traveled. So they're still young. Zach is still university trying to figure out his life, and Tina's 17. So they're not planning to leave this year, but once the kids are taken care of. And whether the kids move with them or not, they're trying to figure out how that works emotionally. So this is one tool that we're going to send to you. It's yours to keep. Use it as a sounding board to talk with your spouse, talk with your if you have a financial planner and you want to talk with them, you know, make sure that you're thinking about these things. Of course, you can always reach out to me and Iveta and we can talk about that and just go down this list and see what's important for you guys. You know, sharing your wealth. Is it important to make sure your will is up to date so that if you die while you're in Europe, everything's taken care of for your kids, if you have kids, right? So that's one of the tools. If there's any questions about this, feel free to put that in the chat right now. I'll take it off share for a second. Oh, I see. Paella in Spain. I love that, Don. Paella for sure. I had paella in Madrid at that, what's that market? Can't remember the name of the market, but they had tons of paella there, different black paella, like with a squid ink and so on. Pastel de nata. I've had that in Portugal. Yes, in Lisbon. No, in Porto. There's a place in Porto. Thanks for sharing, Kristen and Don. Any questions about the tool that I just showed? Okay, great. So let me continue on then. Go back here. The next tool that I want to show is actually something from the Canada Revenue Agency, believe it or not, that I found very helpful. And it is a free resource. You can download it yourself. I'll provide the link for you where you can get it, but I will also we'll send you the PDF in the shared drive. And this is living abroad. Believe it or not, there's so many Canadians planning to do this. There's so many Canadians outside of Canada that they've actually created a document called A Canadian's Guide to Working, Studying, Volunteering, or Retiring in a Foreign Country. Isn't that amazing? Like, this is just amazing for me. And it's a 40-page booklet. I do have hard copies, and I'm definitely willing to mail it out at my cost if you're serious. Like, be serious. I don't want to just mail it out there because you do have the free PDF copy, and that's good enough for most people. But if you want something physical in your hand, I did print out a bunch of copies for a seminar I did last year with Trowbridge, which was downtown at their offices, and we handed it out there. But this will go through every single thing that you can think about from a perspective of Canadian government and CRA, what they recommend for you. Okay, so check out these pages. Completing a risk assessment. Okay. I guess actually Iveta wanted me to highlight this as well, and I forgot. Spain is where a lot of people want to go. Valencia might be a place people want to go, but we all know what happened in Valencia recently, and our hearts go out to those people, especially the ones that lost their lives. But maybe we didn't know until this happened that Valencia is actually in an area where it's prone to mudslides and flooding. And this could be part of your risk assessment, understanding it's not just all sun and flowers and all that stuff. What are the risks involved, right? And especially now with the way that the weather is happening, even in Toronto, like we've got floods almost happening every couple of years, which used to happen every 15 years. So this is part of the new world, I guess, we have to figure out. So I was talking with Iveta or someone the other day that most people want to go on the coast of Spain because it's sun and beach and whatever, and nobody's looking at the inland part, more in the mountains. And we're like thinking, well, maybe in 10 years, everybody will want to be in the mountains if the coasts start getting more storms and so on. Like in Romania, there was a hurricane in Romania off the Black Sea. Crazy. That's really crazy. So risk assessment, not just weather, civil unrest, extreme temperatures, natural disasters, things like that. Evaluating opportunities abroad. There's a whole bunch of links here. Travel advice, cultures. Here's a great one. Consult the country insights page on the Center of Intellectual Learning website for cultural information, which we just talked about. A really good resource. So we'll be sending this to you guys. Actually, what I do plan to do is put it on a shared drive, which I'll give all of you access to download the information instead of emailing it all out to you. So you can go in it whenever you want, download it. You don't have to search for the email. And then, of course, we'll block access after a while, like June the 30th. We'll just we'll have it for the new masterclass because things change. Like this publication might be updated, so we don't want to have it all out there all the time. You've had any questions in the chat yet?
No questions yet.
Okay.
Please, if you do have questions, please type them up.
Okay. It talks about insurance. They're actually saying buy the best insurance you can afford. So I invite anybody who's already moved there, if they want to suggest what they've done, we'd love to hear your experience. But even here it says make sure that you have enough insurance. Moving abroad with children, required travel documents, your Canadian passport, calculating the costs. Hey, this is where we come in, Iveta. Because, okay, not to help you calculate the cost, although we are going to show you different websites that people have used to try to get an idea if you haven't lived there for a while. But that comes up into the budgeting. So my client that's living in Spain right now, we did this exercise where we kind of figured out, what do you think it's going to cost you to live there? What are your rental costs? Or if you're going to buy a house, what's the heating, hydro? We got to put that all into the financial plan to see the cash flow so we can figure out with the exchange rate on the euro. So if we figure out that you need 2,500 euros per month to have a good life, then maybe we don't use 2,500 euros. We use maybe 3,500 euros to have a buffer involved because things can happen, right? Maybe you're in Europe and all of a sudden you see a Wizz Air flight for 19 euros to go to some other country and, oh, let's go for the weekend. That's going to cost you another $1,000 or euros for the hotels and the cappuccinos and all that good stuff, right? So you want to build in a buffer for that, and that's where we would come in with the financial planning aspects. But definitely knowing your cost is a big part of it, right? Staying safe, culture shock, again, healthcare, managing your money. Managing your money, we're going to talk about in future sessions. So one thing you need to know is that in Canada, all the financial institutions have different ways of working with people that are not in Canada. And the reason for that is coming down to licensing and legislation and regulations. For example, Iveta and I are licensed in Canada, currently in Ontario. And we noticed that some of you are watching in from BC and Alberta. We don't currently have licenses in those provinces, but we are able to get licenses there if it makes sense. But for example, we cannot get a license in Spain. So people ask this question all the time. Like I had someone calling in the other day saying, oh, it was actually a couple months ago, I'm with the X company. This is a real story. And when they found out I'm moving to Spain, they said I can't keep my accounts with them anymore. So what do I do? Well, I don't have access to them. So it's really important to talk with your financial institution before you move to figure out, can I have access to my accounts? What kind of services can you provide to me? Because you may eventually want to move everything over to Europe if it makes sense, but landing in the first 6 months to a year, I'm thinking, even for me, when I get to Romania, I'm not going to move my stuff. I'm probably going to leave it with Iveta, probably. Iveta, get ready. So then I'll be there in Romania having this armale, figuring out the banking situation, understanding how I can move stuff if I need to. In the meantime, I've got it with someone that I trust back home that I can WhatsApp or call or whatever and have them do stuff for me. So that's something we'll talk about in future sessions as well. Legal matters, we're going to have a lawyer on board also to talk about the wills, whether you need what happens to your will in Canada when you're living in somewhere else. So anyway, it's a great resource. You're going to get this. Finally, how are we for time? 7:35. Oh, we got lots of time. I'm actually flying through this faster than I thought I would. That's okay. We can always take more questions at the end. The last part that I want to show you is what we call a personal financial review. And this is another tool we're going to give to you. And this is the homework. So number one, this is your own private and confidential personal financial review. You don't have to share this with anybody in this group. This is for you to use. And it's a great tool to consolidate all your information for you so that you can start the building of a plan. And in the next sessions, we're going to start filling this out on the screen with Mark and Mary Expat. So Mark and Mary Expat, we're going to start filling out their names here, their ages, their information, their cash flow, their current cash flow, their future cash flow. And this tool here, it's actually a shortened version of a really detailed meeting that we would have with clients. We would sometimes bring this out if we need to have something to write on, but normally within a couple of hours, we talk with clients and figure out exactly what it is that they're trying to do and get all their information. And it's not hard, but it's also sometimes not easy because sometimes there's information that we have to, the more accurate it is, the better the plan will be. And that's basically the end all and be all. We can't really give a recommendation when we don't really know all the situations, like all the different assets and liabilities. And it's important for you to know that too, because giving another example from a fake real client, I want to change enough of the details so that people don't know who they are. Business owners in Ontario with an investment property that they wanted to leave to one of their children to help them out, like a condo, and also a holiday property somewhere in Ontario that they were trying to figure out what to do with. Should they keep it and rent it out as Airbnb or not? And so that included lots of different mortgage statements, liabilities, cash flows. How does it work when they sell one? Because if they sell the principal residence, there's no tax on the capital gains. But if they sell the condo or the holiday property, there are capital gains. There's a business. So how do they take the money out of their business as tax efficiently as possible? So we'd have to look into the capital gains exemption rule, like so many different things that people might not be able to put together on their own that this tool can help to identify. And then you take it to your financial institution and you have everything in place, basically, because any financial professional worth their salt is going to ask you all these questions. If they don't, they're not doing a good enough job for you. They're not, because they're leaving things aside that, like, you're not expected to know all of these, but we are expected. And if we don't, we have the resources to have the professionals like an accountant or a lawyer come in and vet the plans that we put together to make sure that we've left no stone unturned, right? So this is the importance of that one. On the first page, really important list. These are the resources you would need to, if you're going to build this yourself at home, create a file. You probably have files already for your tax returns. Maybe they're digital or physical. Create a file and get all these things. Your tax return, your notice of assessment. If you're part of a pension at work, like a government pension or a group pension, that's a really important document. Many people, they don't realize that they have until age 55, if they're part of a pension, a defined benefit pension, to make a decision whether they will leave that pension with their employer and have a payout coming out to them for the rest of their lives, or take a lump sum and manage it themselves. And that's not sometimes an easy decision to make, because taking it out on your own, that means you're taking now the risk of having it grow and fund you for the rest of your life. But then there's also, there's the benefit of having a pension pay you out, but then there's also the downside that if you were to die earlier, your spouse doesn't get as much, and there's nothing left over for the kids, because you're not actually having a beneficial, and there's not a lump sum that would be paid out to the children after all that. So these are all discussions you want to take into consideration. Insurance policies. How do insurance policies work? If you have a term here, of course, it's not going to be I apologize. I'm trying not to use jargon, but basically we need to know whether there's a term policy, a universal life policy, how those work if you're in another country, whether you need another policy there or not. So collecting all this information, your pension statements, bank statements. Bank statement is really more for like helping if you're like me, my wife and I, we actually don't use our bank to pay a lot of things through, like the card. We use our credit card. We pay our credit card off every single month, but we know if we look at our statement how much we're spending at No Frills, at Longos, at LCBO. Like, we have a cash flow there, including our insurance for our home and our car. Like, everything goes to our credit card. So now we have an easy way to document, to see what's our cash flow. And actually, just the other day, my wife said, "How come our Visa is so high for the past couple of months?" And I didn't want to tell her, because we're buying more chocolate and the chocolate's gone up. So we're kind of coming down on the chocolate, and maybe the LCBO, but that's another story.
Serge, there is a comment, a question from Dawn.
Yep.
I don't know if we'll be able to answer it, but definitely a tip. So the question is, I have British parents who are both passed away. How do I apply for EU passport? And is it beneficial to have both Canadian and British passports?
So I'll tell you what I know from a Romanian perspective, because I'm not British. And I've answered this question for Italian couple that are my clients, and they were born in Canada of Italian parents and grandparents, and they want to move to Italy, or actually to Europe, because their child is a soccer phenom, apparently. And we researched it for them, and I did it. If you can prove descendancy, you can apply for it. You would have to go to the British consulate to figure out what the specific rules are. For me, I had to show a family tree to my parents, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents. And that was not easy. Thankfully, when I did it, my grandmother was still alive, and I talked with her, and she gave me all the names and everything. Had to get my birth certificate from Romania. For you, well, for the UK, at least you don't have to translate it into another language, but I had to translate in different languages and get it all signed and signed. And so what I would suggest is Iveta and I can take this away and see if we can figure out the answer from our connections on how to get the citizenship, but it is a process. You can do it. The benefit of a dual citizenship, so in that CRA booklet, it actually talks about it. I came across it as I was reviewing it before this session. Canada, number one, allows dual citizenship. I don't know if the UK does or not. But what the Canada says, if you are moving to a country and being a resident there, and you're a resident under their citizenship, the Canadian government may not have any right to protect you because you're under their laws now. So you can have the passport to travel to Canada and so on and so forth, but the Canadian passport, the way I understand it is, if you're traveling around the world and you're a Canadian resident, yes, Canada will be there for you. You go to their consulate, they take care of you. But if you got the dual citizenship, like me going to Romania and buying a property there maybe and becoming a resident there, even though I'm a Canadian citizen, if I'm living in Romania under their laws and I do something there, Canada's not going to help me. I'm going to be under their laws, basically, is what I understand. I hope that answers the question a little bit. This is from my own experience and from people that I've answered the question for otherwise.
And we have quite a few comments here, Serge, and yes, indeed, Brits are slightly different with Brexit. So it is, as some comments here, it's not necessarily part of Europe anymore. But I suppose the best place to inquire for the passport is obviously the embassy. And I know for my children, Latvian embassy is the one where we got the passports for my kids, the Latvian passports. So embassy is the first step.
And what I love about this question is that I can see how this is going to be a great support group. I just joined the Spanish Chamber of Commerce, Toronto, whatever. So I'll be going to meet with them in a networking session on November the 27th. And they just joined the chambers, I believe Ireland, UK, Netherlands, or whatever, that they're going to all get together. So I'll be able to ask these questions as well when I go to meet them. So thank you for the question, Don. Really appreciate it. It goes into our database of questions on people we're going to ask.
That's also how we get to know each other, guys. So
Yeah.
this is, as Serge said, it's a tribe.
Yeah. All right. So I'm still sharing the screen.
Yes.
So you're going to have all this stuff here. Take it, do some homework, some pre-work. Fill it out as best you can. You don't have to share with us. Okay. You don't have to share with us. But what we hope is that at the end of these sessions, you're going to have your own written down, taking it from vapor to paper, basically. Because if you just think about it all the time, it is going to start to move you forward. But the moment you start putting things down on paper, it's helped me a lot to think about it. And can I just be honest? Like, you know that story about the shoemaker that doesn't take care of his own shoes? I had it in my head for 8 years. And only 2 years ago, I used our own services, Iveta, at IG to vet my own plan. So what we have at IG, to just a little bit of a plug, is we can create the plan, and then we have access to, it's called Private Wealth Planning Experience, where we submit it, and an accountant, a lawyer, an investment specialist will all look at it and look at any gaps or risks involved that we hadn't thought of. And they'll say, Serge, did you think about this? Did you think about that? Oh no, let's put that in. So I'm confident now I've got my plan. And even then I know that something might go wrong. A wrench might be thrown into the works because that's life, right? But I have enough confidence that I built enough, I guess, buffers to know that even if I don't work in Europe, I'll be okay. And if I do have to, I know by how much I need to cover the overages.
Got the chocolates.
Yeah. Well, no, not chocolate. What I built in is Wizz Air flights here and there. Like I envisage having a place to sleep in the sleepy town in Romania, and then driving to Sibiu Airport an hour away, taking a flight to Italy or Spain or wherever, and having a nice weekend and going back and, expanding this group. So that's the story. So hopefully this is really helpful for you guys. I'm going to check to see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about.
Well, Serge, is there going to be, now I'm talking like a spectator, but is there going to be, so once let's say I'll say, prepare this personal financial review. And what would you do with it then? What is the next step?
Well, again, at any point through any of these sessions, if anybody attending has any specific question that is important for them to get an answer before session number 6 or whatever, reach out to me, reach out to Iveta. We'll have a confidential discussion. No requirement to become a client or anything like that. We really simply want to see how we can help. And if it makes sense that we work together, great. If not, that's fine. We're helping you get along the way. At the end of this session, when you have this all filled out, the missing piece, the only missing piece will be how complicated it is. Because we met with people where it's not that difficult. Like, okay, here's what you do, put it into this type of account, put it into a balanced portfolio that you can access and so on and so forth, and go live your life, enjoy. You don't really need our help. But for more complicated cases or something that might be more intricate, the missing piece will be the financial planning software. And any good company, whether it's IG Wealth or whatever financial institution you're thinking about, they will have a robust financial planning software. You can't buy it. I mean, if millions was invested in these kinds of softwares where it takes into account tax implications, income levels, capital
CPP.
gains, CPP, everything is in there. That's the last step, inputting it into that kind of software. So if anybody wants to do that, we would have that discussion and do that for you. And again, it depends on where you're located. If you're in BC, we'd have to look at whether we can do that for you or not, because we're not licensed there, but in Ontario, definitely. And that will be the missing step.
And the beauty of this step is going to help you determine whether you are on par with your anticipated goal. Let it be, maybe you figured out that, hey, 2,500 euros per month is going to get me my lifestyle that I want, but based on the software, all I'm at is 1,900.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do today to increase it to that 22? And if you have those 3 to 5 years, hey, it's doable. That's why it's important to address it yesterday versus addressing it once you move and then saying, damn it, I should have, would have, could have.
We're all human. I met a couple or spoke with them. They just left, no planning, whatever, mid-20s. So if I was single, I would maybe, like, I'm a guy, whatever, I don't know, like maybe I would do it, but we have responsibilities, right? And like it or not, we want safety and comfort, and we're not doing this to go to somewhere to start fresh. Whatever your reasons are, we don't have to get into the reasons. I mean, I know a lot of people that I've talked to is because cost of living. Like, Americans are moving to Romania. Like, I've seen this. Romania was off the map before. Like, nobody knew where it was. It was behind the Iron Curtain. It was like werewolves and Dracula and garlic. That was Romania for so many years. And all of a sudden, it's become a place where Americans who would have to pay $4,500 a month US in the United States to live are paying $1,500 in Romania to live, right? But now it's all that question about what happens, what's the tax implications, how can I make sure, what's health like? It's still scary, right, to do that. So I want to take a look because we're kind of getting out to the end for any more questions. I see Sergey said that from my experience, if you can get an EU passport, it would help you a lot in Europe. So be born in Europe or be a descendant of a European. It's not easy, but can be done. It took me 2 years and $2,000 to get my citizenship back, but it can be done. Thank you for your response. Thank you, Don, for your questions. Iveta, I have 2 passports. Oh, congratulations, Iveta. Ooh, if I plan to move to Spain, then my income tax would be 19. Oh, you're getting into tax already. I'm not even going to touch that because I'm not. Very interesting, Iveta. Thank you very much. How can we register for the other sessions? You are already automatically, if you're registered for this one, we are going to be sending out the next session after this session. So thank you for the question, Eleanor. You're all involved in this, whether you like it or not. Ignore it, come attend. We're happy to see you. We'd like to see more participation with you guys, but you're already registered. You're welcome, Eleanor.
So the final message, if I may, I just spoke today to a individual. The message is think before you leave, right? From the children's book. Sometimes, once again, people move very quickly into making these decisions, just like Serge says, leave everything and move, and then face the consequences. And in this specific case, the person has a property here in Canada, moved to abroad, Europe, and got his visas, and only now sold the property here. And the consequences, as we know, there's no yet tax on principal residence. However, it seems that in Europe, there is going to be a capital gains tax that this individual will need to pay based on the sale of his property here in Canada. So once again, that's why planning is so important, and understanding the taxation before any plan is placed. That's my final.
It's one of those things is you don't know what you don't know. And the
Yes.
more you get into it, the more you get to know. Even in my discussions with people like Sergey, who is online today, he's given me some information that I didn't know before. And really, the main point, like someone said, well, I can get all these answers off the Facebook. Yes, but I mean, you're asking a question and you don't know who's answering, and then what happened for them might work for them, but not for you. And that's one of the main reasons I'm so happy that everybody's joined us here today, because hopefully we can learn from each other. We can share our expertise. Iveta and I from the financial planning standpoint, and from the experts we're going to be bringing on. And you guys, if you want to share, if you've done this already, if there's something that you want to share to the group, we encourage you to do so if you feel comfortable doing that. With that, I have nothing else to say except for please take this as homework. We'll send you out the stuff, start working on it, or don't work on it. You know, I attend a lot of master classes myself, and one of the most important things that someone told me was 100 people are going to do this and join. 50% of them are not going to do anything. They're just going to, look around and kind of get the sense of what's going. 25 might actually start working on it. That's fine. This is not any judgment or anything. We're all at different stages. It's taken me 10 years to get to this point today. So I started when I was 43, and I'm 53 now, and I'm near the end. Definitely you can do it faster than that. But part of it is, the emotional thing. It's not finances. We can do dollars and cents. That's easy. It's like, why? Why are we doing this? Right? So, hey, Sergey, thanks for the kudos. Thank you very much. We are entering, I'm going to keep recording, but we are entering the Q&A session. So if anybody wants to ask questions, now is the time. Put in the chat, unmute yourself, share your screen if you like. It's all our group. No one else is going to see this.
Otherwise, we are meeting next Tuesday, same place, same time.
Yep.
The email is going to follow. And we have some homework to do ourselves by sharing some Facebook groups, the tools that Serge went through today, and reminding you of next week. Yeah. Okay.
We're going to wait. We're going to wait until you guys sign off.
Till 8 o'clock.
We have 3 minutes, and actually another 20 after, whoever wants to stay on.
Thank you. Good. And maybe there are also obviously many other people who registered but could not attend, so they will be receiving
Thank you,
this
Kirsten.
recording. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Eleanor. So, I'll tell you something funny. The cultural thing. Romanians have these jokes. They're called bancuri, Bancuri. And I'm always the life of the party when I go to these Romanian parties. because they tell me these jokes, which are like a cultural thing. Like you don't understand it unless you were raised in Romania almost, right?
Mm.
And the funny part is not the joke anymore. The funny part is me not laughing when the punchline hits, right? So it's like they always like it's always a party and hey Serge, we got a bonk for you. I'm like, okay, are you gonna tell me when to laugh? And like they're always like, okay, here's and they start off with Bula. Bula says that, like Bula is or Yon is another one, and they say the joke, and then there's like silence when the punchline hits. Like they want to laugh, but they're looking at me like they're staring at me. And I'm like, what? And then start laughing
You
the
were
whole time.
supposed, I'll do
So
this and then you laugh, right?
yeah.
No.
Well, and then the funny part is because most of them are engineers, then they start trying to explain to me the logic behind it and why it should be funny,
Oh my God.
right? So that's definitely a cultural thing that I've learned is different.
Well, it was interesting for me, and I'll share it in the group as well. I reached out to someone in Spain and, hi, how are you? And it was recently, so I'm asking a bit about the weather and what's going on. And then once we get into the business side, which is quite short, within the short period of time, I say, so what do you do? And the person says, well, that's kind of weird. In Spain, we don't ask this question
Oh, wow.
during these types of meetings. I'm like, what do you mean you don't ask? It's once again, it's the different
So you don't
cultural.
ask what do you do for a living there. You just
Not
it's not a nice
immediately
thing.
when you meet for the first time. Yeah, you don't start your conversation with that really. Versus here, it's whether, it's sunny or not. And then we go into, so what do you do, Serge?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's always like that. It's like, so yeah, what do you do? Yeah.
Mhm. What do you No, you don't ask that.
Yeah.
Don't know what to talk about then.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
one thing I felt was really interesting when we were in Spain, bring small talk to a different level. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you're
for
right.
sure.
Mm.
You know, I don't know if it's like a romantic, like, oh, this is another big part of like the moving part. Like, there's a honeymoon stage, I believe. Like,
Yeah.
my wife worked there in Spain. She got a job. Like, this is part of our process. Like, she got a job and worked in Malaga, and she was there for 6 months. And I visited her for 6 weeks in uh, end of November till January. And I felt like people are so friendly and everything. And I mean, I'm sure that there's not all the time, but there's two instances. One, we were walking home from the groceries. My wife was wearing high heels because she was coming from work and she tripped on one of those cobblestone streets and oranges were flying everywhere. And before I could even react, there were like four guys and a woman picking up her oranges and helping her up. And I was like standing there like dumbfounded. What happened? Right? So that was one thing. And then the other part, like we had a rental car, like a really small one. By the way, everything is dented in Europe. Like doesn't matter if it's an Audi or it's like a whatever, Seat. Everything's scratched and dented. So if anybody is thinking to bring their beautiful Audi or BMW there, just know, at least in Spain, it's gonna get a scratch. Anyway, I was trying to park this car, a small little car in a small little space, and I was backing and forwarding. There was like stick shift, which I love to drive there. And it was like a Friday night, and this group of Spaniards, two couples in their late 50s, stopped and started telling me how to back in and forward in Spanish and whatever. And when I finally parked, they're like, "Yay, good for you."
It's it's
And guess
such because for
guess
lunch
what?
they have their wines. That's
But guess
why.
what? In broken Spanish, they invited us to join them for dinner. We made friends with them, people we didn't even know. And the next time we went to Spain, we looked them up. We went for dinner with them again. And this is us not speaking fluent Spanish in a kind of broken Spanish, and they're speaking sort of broken English. It was just unbelievable. Just some of the things that we
Beautiful.
love.
Beautiful.
People are still on. So either they like to us, we should start a podcast, Iveta.
Or
Maybe we
no,
should
or
start a
maybe they
podcast.
left.
No, I
They
still,
just didn't want to show that they
no,
left.
people are still watching us. And
Yeah.
some of them were on before, and now they don't want to put their cameras on to join the conversation.
Yeah.
Anybody want to join? I hear something. I tell you what, I'm going to stop recording. How about that?
Yeah, you better.
Let me
Now
stop
we can come
recording.
on.
Disclaimer: this video is for informational purposes only and is not intended to constitute professional advice or an offer to buy or sell any financial products or services. The opinions expressed are those of the presenters and do not necessarily reflect the views of our firms. The information provided here is general in nature and may not be applicable to individual situations. Please consult a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before making any decisions based on this content. This video is not intended to solicit clients residing in any jurisdiction where we are not licensed to operate.